Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of work with figures and poses. Now I've been reading a book by Andrew Loomis and it's called Figure Drawing for All It's Worth. It's free online. You can download the PDF, so I recommend you look it up on Google, check it out. Pretty epic, pretty good book. It's been helping me a lot. And the idea behind the book is that it focuses on a couple of things. And the first and most important thing is the shapes. The book tries to teach you to only draw basic shapes for your figures, and these are for simple sketches. This isn't for our construction or finished product. Simple sketches. So we draw our basic shapes, try to get some good proportions out of them, and emphasize the movement of the character or figure. So as you can see here, I drew a figure. He's right here, this little character. I've got some pretty decent proportions. I have a feeling the head could be a little bit bigger just by looking at it right now. But I drew him kind of taking a bow, and as you can see, it's very simple drawings, but it's quite the evolution from when we first learned to draw. When we first learned to draw, we tend to draw our heads, our bodies, and then something like this, right? Which gives us no information about where the chest goes. Does it go there? Or does it go down here? Or does it go up here? I don't know. It doesn't give us any information about joints. Where are the joints in this character? Is it like that? Is this how the character is supposed to look? Is that something normal? What's this over here? How's that? And this is a huge neck right here. So when we do these old style figures, yeah, they're very cute, but they don't give us a lot of information as to how we should be drawing our characters. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using some basic shapes. Now, if you look at this character here on the side, you can tell that for the head, I used a simple peg shape. So this is something very simple. It's just a basic U or an upside down U. And let me see if I can trace this nicely for you guys so you guys can see it. So we have a basic U and then kind of like a rounded off bottom here. Something like that. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And I like to use these little lines to emphasize where the nose and the eyes might go, but you don't really need to. As for the hands, I like to use a basic square, right? So this is kind of like a square, and then I let a little bit stick out for where the thumb would go. And you can kind of see that here. For the feet, I used a triangular shaped foot, so kind of like a trapezoid back here, and then a little bit of a triangle, and if you're looking at it sideways, it might just be a triangle. If you're looking at it straight from the front, it might just be a trapezoid, like maybe something like that. So these are all the legs. It's nothing too fancy, of course. And for the chest, as you can see here, I have this nice shape right here, this nice boxy shape. So that's this. I like to use a wide chest, wider than it is thick, because our bodies tend to be wider than thicker unless we're a little bit, disproportioned or a little bit bigger than the average bear. That's okay too, and we can adjust for that using these basic shapes. For the pelvis, I use two ovals. You can see that right here. There's one oval and here's the second oval. They don't have to be perfect. It's just to represent where the pelvis would go. And for bones, I just use little sticks. So I try to draw these little sticks for bones. And whenever there's a joint between two bones, you can kind of see here that I drew a dashed line. So if this was connected to another bone, I might do something like that. And I know later, for my construction lines, I could come back and fill that with a kneecap or an elbow or something of the sort. And then finally, the spine. The spine is another creature that we tend to get wrong, because we tend to draw spines straight, but no one's spine is straight. People's spines are curved, so we will draw curves for our spines, even if our characters stand up straight. So, again, let me emphasize it one more time. We'll be working with basic shapes. We'll be working with, let me get these things out of the way here so we can see everything. Basic shapes. We'll be working with good proportions, or try to get some good proportions, and emphasize movement. So we want to be able to see good movement in our characters. If we draw really well, but our characters always have the same pose, it can be stale and boring. So we want to emphasize these cool poses. And sometimes if we're not that great at the details, the poses can help us hide our shortcomings. And I fall into that category, so that's okay with me. Alright, so let's draw a little bit. Now here I am going to draw 4 poses: running, jumping, kneeling, and an action pose. And actually I'm going to move these things, this one and this one, and I'm going to move them up a bit, just because that's a bit too low. We might not have enough room to draw stuff later, so this should give us plenty of room. So let's start with running, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit. As you can see here, I zoomed out a little bit, and that's good. And we're going to draw a running pose. So I'm going to draw them in green just because it's nice and visible in green. No big deals there. So for these poses, I tend to start with the pelvis. So I imagine this guy is going to run this way. So he's going to run that way. Okay? So we're looking at it from the side. In other words, because we're looking at it from the side, I'm going to draw the pelvis as one big oval here, and the other one's kind of hiding behind it. So something like that, where this is in the front, and this other one is kind of in the background. Okay? So we have our basic pelvis. Now this one looks kind of like it's in the back, so I'm going to draw the back leg as coming forward. Cut that a little bit there. And I'm going to draw this one as being a little bit more planted to the ground. Okay. Now because this one's planted to the ground, as you can see here, I am dividing where the next portion of the bone will go. This one probably hasn't reached the ground yet, so it's going to be up in the air. Maybe something like this. Okay. And then this one's going to be more planted on the ground, so maybe not that long. And when drawing these proportions, try to keep the two sides of the leg the same length. So here I'm going to draw this one up to there. That's about the same length. And then maybe draw my foot planted on the ground like that. So this one's a little bit further back. It's a little small. And this one's a bit too big. That's okay. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for good proportions. Now when someone runs, they tend not to stand up straight. So I'm going to go ahead and draw their back as arched a little bit forward, like that. As you can see here, this is the spinal cord now, and instead of drawing it a straight line up, I drew it curved. So this helps me a lot. It helps me see where my head will be. So I'm going to draw the peg where my head is, and maybe he's just pointing forward like that. So this is his eye and his nose there, like that. And I drew that in so you guys could see it from the side. And his chest, well, his pelvis is a little bit back, so I'm going to draw his chest a little bit forward. So in other words, we're seeing a lot of the side of his body, but not a lot of his chest. His chest is kind of coming back down like this. So we're going to see a lot more back than we are front. So this is his chest, this is his back. We're going to see a lot more of his back than of his chest. And this leg is back. So let me draw, just to differentiate here, the back arm will be coming out and going back like that, and then maybe a fist. And the front arm is going to be a little bit longer because it's in the foreground, and something like that. And I'll draw the hand the way that I showed you guys I would draw the hand, something like that. So now we can see this character is, and let's try to draw some ground here just so we see exactly what's happening. He's kind of running or maybe picking up the pace right now, hasn't really committed to a full sprint yet. So he's not sprinting, he's just running a little bit. So right now we can see this is a very good pose. This is alive. And hopefully you guys can see how it can convey the image of running. And it's pretty nice at it too. It's not perfect, and we can definitely clean it up with time. But for now, this is a good pose to start with. And it helps our drawings and our sketches come to life a lot easier. And remember, I'm just using ovals, some triangular shaped things here, a circle. This is the box with the pointy thing sticking out, and a peg, and a good rectangle here, a good box for the complete proportions of the body. I haven't completed, I don't know where my skin is going to go yet, but I have a good feeling of where I could go from here. Okay, so this is a pretty nice one right there. So this guy's going to be jumping, and we're going to draw him facing forward. So he's facing this way. He's facing forward, okay? So we're going to draw him facing forward, and he's going to be jumping. Now, how do I want him to jump? A simple jump or a full-blown leap? Let's do a full-blown leap here. So he's doing one of those superhero Spider-Man style jumps. Start with the pelvis, and since he's facing forward, we get to see the full pelvis, kind of like that. And maybe he's jumping, so maybe his chest is a little bit closer to his pelvis because his back might be a little arched or something of that nature. But we're going to draw something like that, where we can kind of see the character like that from this nice angle where we see both a nice length of his body. And he's jumping up, so I'm going to draw a little bit of the arms here. So those are my arm bones, and just so we don't get confused between bones and these divider lines, I'll draw this, and then maybe one of those, and right here too, and maybe one of those, something like that. Good. Now we don't want to draw a straight line up. Nope, that's not how anybody's back looks. Even if you're from the front, we still want to give it the illusion of a curve. So we want it to look like he's arching a little bit. So I'm going to draw his head a little bit tilted. Gives it a little bit more of a lively feeling. And maybe draw his face like this. This looks a little bit nicer, and I am going to have to shrink this whole section here. So let me just go ahead and do that real quick. So I'll draw this right here. That's fine. I'm drawing it with too thick of a pen here. That's okay. And this allows me to lengthen his arms a little bit too, which means that this section can get more like this. And there we go. That looks nicer. That looks much nicer. Now as for his legs, I do want them to be kind of doing the Spider-Man leap. So I am going to draw these kind of flaring out here. I don't want this one to flare out that much. Maybe something like that. So there's one leg, and there's the other one. And we want the bones coming down, and the bone here to be kind of curved a little bit to show that leap. And then here's our triangular foot. Here's our triangular foot. And there we go. We got this nice leap going on. Let's draw some ground down here. There we go. So this guy has leaped off the ground, and we can clearly see, hey, you know what? We do have this nice leap. There's plenty of things that we can fix, definitely, and we'll come back and look at those in a little bit. But we can convey the liveliness of a leap instead of trying to draw it based off stick figure styles. So we can see here, these are kind of nice. These are kind of really working very well. So this guy, we're going to draw him kneeling, and we want him facing, I'm going to draw him facing this way, just to get him different from the top guy. So now we're going to start with the pelvis again. So he's kneeling, so maybe his pelvis is a little bit straighter up and down, and maybe we don't see much of the back side or of the other oval. So let's assume the other oval is on the other side. Now he's facing that way, so we're going to want him kneeling, which means that his back is probably going to be very arched. And maybe his head is coming up a bit, so this is his backbone. Okay, and maybe his legs. Those are some sloppy lines, and I try to keep my lines somewhat consistent. I don't want them to be all over the place. Let me draw this like that, and then, okay, like that, and then here's this leg, and maybe the other one is somewhere in the back here, and there's the other leg, something like that. Okay, good. So we have the two legs, and he's kneeling. Now, this already I can tell is going to need some work afterwards, but for now, this looks kind of nice. And we kind of want him to be level with us, so we're not going to see too much back, we're not going to see too much chest. So we're going to allude to a little bit of back here, give him a little bit of depth, but not too much. And I drew his backbone as being too far forward, so how I can fix that is simple. Curve his chest even more, curve it even more. So now you can see, okay, now we got some depth back here. And now I could bring his head up a little bit. So maybe he's looking directly at us like that, or directly this way. Okay, and now for the arms. The arms, I'm going to have them resting on the legs. So maybe something like this, where this goes like that, and then there, and like that. And then the back one can be resting on the other leg. Something like that. So here's a guy who is kneeling down. He's got a little bit of the depth to the foreground and background here. We have 2 lines here. Signify that. And we can come back and look at some of the things that we can clean up on this character. But for now, we can kind of see the motion here. It gets a little hectic with all these lines in here. But if we kind of tidy these up a little bit, clean some of these up, I'll just erase them. Normally I would leave them, but for the purposes of the video, I will erase them. We can kind of see, okay, well, yeah, this is definitely his forearm, his knee, his legs, the back arm over there, and his head is kind of sticking up, but it looks much more natural here. This whole curve is very natural. And lastly, we want some action pose. So how about we do, I don't know, maybe a punch. Maybe he's going to be punching that way. So that looks like he's punching down. No, we want him punching sideways, like that. So establish my pelvis here. So I'm going to give him a pelvis that's kind of turned a little bit, and give him this leg kind of pointing out. Give him a nice planted feel. So his leg is planted. The back leg is stretched out a little bit. Okay, so, and this foot is going to be a little bit more vertical. Something like that. That looks terrible. Something like that, yeah. This leg can be a little bit thicker. So now we have here the back leg and the leg in the foreground. And he's going to be punching, so we're going to assume that his chest is going to be coming at us at an angle. Maybe something like this, where we could see a little bit of the bottom, which would imply that we could see more abs and ribs once we get into our skin. And we can kind of see that his back is kind of arching for the punch. So we can put the face here kind of facing like that. And how can we fix this? Good thing about these shapes is that we can fix these quite nicely and quite easily. We kind of want him to be arching the other way, actually. We want him to be, yeah, something like this, where his, yeah, this is much better. Okay, let me erase this real quick. Let me just erase some of these. Good. So we have the line for his back. We know what we want him to do. We can put his face in, and we want his arm, or where his arm would go, to be facing us. So this will be his back. This is his back right here. And so as a result, maybe this arm here, the back arm, would come down, and then here would go like that. This is his back arm, and his forearm is going to be much thicker line, just so we could see it better, like this, and then maybe a shape here. So we can see this character is punching. Looks like he's punching, and it's got a little bit more of a nice flow. Now the last thing that we can do to really add some kick to these things, and let me add some ground here. I like adding ground to see if my character has weight. If it looks like my character doesn't weigh anything, it looks like he's a little floaty, then I can go back and try to fix that. And now we can go back and take a look at our drawings and kind of just clean them up a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this guy up, something like that. And all I'm doing here is making sure that my proportions add up. So is this a nice distance here? Do I want him to be long and thin? Do I want him to have a big pelvis? I'm drawing this one a little bit smaller, and that's okay. And then something like that. And then here, I'm going to make this line nice and thick and make it a little bit more curvy, and then close this hand, just because I don't think many people run with an open hand. And here I want these to be a little bit more exaggerated. So once I have my standard sketches, I can start to really play with some of these shapes. And there we go. We have this nice little cleanup. And if I turn off the green layer, you can kind of see, oh, okay, yeah, definitely this guy is running. This guy is definitely running. And we can, whenever there's a back, I'll just color it in for you guys so you guys can see that that is the back side of this character. So now, yeah, this guy is definitely running. He looks much more like he's running. We got some weight. We got everything we want. I'm going to make this layer a little bit thinner so that we can continue to look through these. Okay, so we cleaned that one up, and all I'm looking for is shapes and proportions that I don't quite like. For example, his chest is kind of thick, and this is humongous. So I'm just going to shrink this, make his chest a little bit smaller, and make it, yeah, a little bit more proportioned out, like that. Make his curve a little nicer. Make his head a little bit more peg-shaped. Give it a little bit more of a tilt. Yeah, and this I can really play with. Close that fist. Maybe keep this one open. I like the way that looks. Something like that. And now I can really, okay, well look. I can really look at these bones and say, okay, this shouldn't be that far in. I can turn it out a little bit. That's fine. Straighten it. Okay, that's a much more proportioned foot. This is nice. This one needs to be a little bit, yeah, like that. And now when I turn off the green, you guys can see, okay, well, yeah, definitely he's in the air. Definitely see that this man is in the air. Good. Now all I'm doing is going back and cleaning some of these proportions. And something like this one, where we did it, and I can notice right now that the center of gravity of this character is here. And he would fall down. So the best way to fix that is to bring his pelvis in, curve his back more, and we said that we're going to see not a lot of back on this character. We're going to see a lot of the side of his body, but not a lot of back, so maybe a little bit there. Okay, something like that. Clean up his arm here. There's one arm. And now I can kind of, alright, well, here's my leg, here's my other leg, and move this foot back, and move the other foot back as well. So this would be my back foot. Move this forward a little bit, and this is coming from the back foot here. And that's where my back hand would go, or the hand in the background. And now we can see, okay, he's much better proportioned. This arm may still be a little long compared to this leg, but we can kind of see that, yeah, we definitely have some nice shapes now. We have some nice drawings that really display this life a lot better. So we'll do this last one real quick. Now, I gave this guy, this is his front leg, or the leg closest to us, and it's kind of moving. Oh, that's the leg behind us. Okay, I see that now. Alright, so because that's the leg behind us, I'm going to erase this top part and allow the pelvis to show us what's happening. So this is the back, this is the front here. So we'll connect this to the front here. Yeah, something like this is much nicer. You can kind of see, alright, we have some nice shapes. Bring the chest down a little bit because no one is that elongated. Maybe give it some foreshortening a little bit. Bring the head down. And then bring the arm up a bit. Make it a little bit more straight to convey that message of I'm going to fight you and beat you up a little bit better. And then here's our back. And we're going to follow our leg line for our back. So now if I add the ground, and of course none of my lines are straight because my tablet is so tiny. Now we can see, yeah, this guy, he's fighting. He's fighting and it looks realistic. It looks like something that someone could actually do. And that's the whole point of this whole video, is to get you guys to do some poses that people would actually do. Now, to end the video, I'm going to show you guys a file that I have where I keep a lot of poses that I work on. So hopefully you guys can take a look at it and see some stuff. I try to draw a straight line and then do all my pelvises matching that straight line. And as you can see, we have here, okay, here's a guy walking, running, or this guy's sprinting, this guy's posing, maybe falling. I think there's more up here. This guy's upside down, maybe like Beast from X-Men. This is another jumping or leap. As you can see, I kind of like the way this leg looks, but this foot maybe I want to change. This is a guy who's mocking someone, and here I started doing some line work. Let me turn that off. And this is just a heroic pose here. So all this is basic shapes, and hopefully you guys are able to retain something from this video. I keep these poses and I use them later to reference for images or for stuff that I might want to do. So I recommend you start doing that. Make a whole sketchbook full of poses, and you can't go wrong because you could always use them and they will help you get better at anatomy. I'm barely learning this stuff, so if I can do it, you can do it. So keep at it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.